This is the Hall of Underrated Games, the new series on the Mike Osiris channel where I discuss games that do not get nearly as much attention as they deserve. This is a concept that's been in the back of my mind for a while, and I figure I've been holding on to this for long enough. Today's underrated game is 2014's hilarious yet depressing title, Lisa, the Painful RPG. This game will ruin your fucking life. It lulls you into a false sense of security with its humor, then utterly blindsides you with some of the most depressing shit ever. You will grow to care about the members of your party, just to have them ripped away from you without a moment's notice, be it through death, kidnapping, or them just flat out giving you the "I'm going out to get some milk and cigarettes, I'm definitely coming back" treatment. This game will kick in your teeth, piss in your mouth, and then it gets mean. I suppose I should talk about the first game to give Painful a bit more context, because this is actually the second game in the series. Lisa the First is a Yume Nikki-like psychological horror RPG maker game, not unlike Misao or Mad Father. You play as Lisa Armstrong, who is trying to mentally escape from her shitty situation as well as her physically, mentally, and sexually abusive father, Marty Armstrong. As you play through this game, you see phallic symbolism everywhere, and that piece of shit Marty's face is inescapable. At the end of First, it is heavily implied that Lisa commits suicide, which is confirmed in Painful. Really, if you feel like playing this one, then by all means go ahead. I'm not your parent. But is it necessary to play it to know what is going on in Painful? No. The only context that you need going in is that Lisa kills herself, which is shown in the main menu of Painful, where you see Lisa just hanging out. Anyway, on to the main event. In Lisa the Painful, you play as Brad Armstrong. Brad is a lot of things. He's a former karate instructor, he's a drug addict, he blames himself for the death of his sister, and he is shown to flat out not be a good person. When the game starts, Brad is a child, and just got done getting his ass handed to him by some local bullies for sticking up for his friends. After the ass whooping, Brad takes a shameful walk home. Once he gets through the door, his ever-so-loving father greets him with, "Another day, my son comes home, beaten to shit," which is followed by a beer bottle to the head, showing that Marty is one of the biggest pieces of shit in gaming. After this intro sequence, we jump forward in time to a post-apocalyptic world where there are pretty much only men alive. When we see Brad, he's addicted to this new drug called joy, which promises to make the user feel absolutely nothing, both physically and emotionally. Considering Brad's childhood, yeah, I can see how that sounds appealing. Anyway, Brad comes across a baby girl just lying there on the ground. Brad takes her to his three lifelong friends, Rick, Sticky, and Cheeks, and they discuss what to do next. One of them suggests to bring the girl to their local warlord, Rando, but Brad shoots that idea down in favor of just raising the baby themselves. So Brad, Rick, Sticky, and Cheeks become father figures for the baby, now named Buddy. Over the next 10 years, Brad tries his damnedest to make it so that Buddy is priority number one. He tries multiple times to kick his joy addiction for her sake, but as soon as the memories become too painful, he comes crawling back to the drug. Since Buddy is known to be the last remaining female left in the world, to say that Brad is a bit overprotective of her is like saying that EDP-445 is a little bit of a pedophile. Brad forbids her to see the outside world in case some sick pervert tries to kidnap her, unknowingly putting her in the same situation that Lisa was put through, minus the sexual abuse. Brad tries to be a good father to Buddy, until one day, where everything comes crashing down around him. Brad was taking a walk when he came across the mighty Terry Hintz, who was chased up a tree by a dog. Brad saves Terry by performing a special karate move that makes animals spontaneously explode, and makes a new friend in the Lord of the Tutorial himself. As the two men walk back to Brad's house, they witness a horrifying sight. There's blood and bodies everywhere, and the only friend of Brad's still alive is Cheeks, who is currently dying. "Secret's out, Brad," Cheeks tells him. Whoever attacked them also kidnapped Buddy, which causes Brad and Terry to set out on a bizarre adventure to rival JoJo's, all in an effort to bring Buddy home. On this quest, Brad can recruit many different characters to fight alongside him, which we can get into later. For now, let's discuss some details that really make this game shine. The tutorials of this game are the farthest fucking thing from handholdy. A lot of it you just end up figuring out yourself through the clues given, and sure, the game nudges you in that direction from time to time, but it doesn't beat you over the head with it. Let me give you a couple examples. In the beginning of the game, you meet the previously mentioned Terry Hintz. When he joins your party, his physical attacks don't do any damage to the enemy. He just trips over his own 2 feet and slides into them. Upon first impression, you get the feeling that Terry is completely fucking useless and should be abandoned the first chance you get, but you wouldn't be more wrong in thinking that. Sure, Terry can't do damage, but that's just so the game can teach you about inflicting statuses, which are just as important as offensive combat in this game. For example, inflicting crying will decrease the foe's hit rate by half, Weird reduces attack by 20% and defense by 30%. Scared makes them unable to attack for a turn and drops their evasion to 0. You get the point. These status effects will be a gigantic help throughout the game, and it's good that this game encourages you to get the hang of them early. Another clever tutorial trick is when you first get the bicycle. Once you hop on it and move to the right into the next area, there's a small gap there. Before you realize it, you're on the other side of that gap, which tells you that the bike is not just for moving quicker, but it can help you reach these places you couldn't reach previously. I love it when games do this kind of thing. They tell you how features work without insulting your intelligence by spelling it out to you as if you were a fucking infant. As I've said before, this game is absolutely punishing. Your party members could just up and die on a moment's notice. Here's a few ways to lose your party members whether you like it or not. Partway through the game, some goon knocks you out with a metal pipe and brings you to a building with a bunch of other guys. There, you're forced to offer up your party members to play a game of Russian roulette. If your guy loses, they die. Permanently. There ain't no resting at a campfire for them. It's lights out. And if that wasn't bad enough, you need to get 3 fucking wins before they let you go. So if you're really unlucky, you could lose your entire fucking party to this gang. Okay, let's step back here. Say your party is pretty beat up after going up against a particularly strong enemy. All of a sudden, you spot a campfire. Now at this point, you're probably thinking, oh thank God, a place where I can safely rest. Oh, you sweet summer child. Didn't you read the title card for this section? You are never safe. Every time you rest at one of these campfires out in the open, there is a small chance of many things occurring. You could be bitten by a spider, poisoning your whole team. One of your guys could get kidnapped, forcing you to track down the gang who took him and either pay the ransom or watch as your party member gets his fucking throat slit. Hell, out of nowhere, one of your members could be like, fuck this shit, and straight up abandon you. You always run the chance of that happening whenever you rest up somewhere, and it forces you to keep on your toes and never let your guard down. There are decisions you can make that will affect how the rest of the game plays out. Most of these occur when a gang called the Joy Boys ambushes you and makes you make a difficult decision. You could choose to give up all your items, which are also extremely important, I might add, or sacrifice a party member. These ramp up as the game goes along and gets even more depraved. Like when you could either give up one of your fucking arms, barring you from using certain combo moves, or getting rid of a party member chosen at random. Hell, there's one part where you can choose between severing Buddy's nipple or killing all of the people in your party. There were times where I was stuck at the selection screen of this for minutes at a time because I genuinely didn't know which option was worse. Either way, you get fucked over pretty badly. Let's move on to some lighter things about this game. It's not all doom and gloom, believe it or not. In fact, this game can be really goddamn funny when it wants to be. One of my favorite moments in this game is when you come across a guy running a daycare service. He asks you to grab a bucket of water to put out a fire the kids made, and once you throw the bucket onto them, they burst into flames like Marilyn Manson stepping foot onto the Vatican. Turns out, that was his gasoline bucket. His water bucket was up the hill. Another one was when you just stumble across a random house, and once you enter, it's a one-man rave. This guy just has a fishbowl or whatever the fuck on his head, and is just dancing like it's the end of the world, which it pretty much is. And who can forget Nern Guan? This guy prides himself on being a historian and tells you all about how the world ended. At least he starts with that before his story devolves into ranting about iced tea and how much his wife was a sneaky bitch. By the time it's over and you walk away from him, he starts another fucking long-winded story. When that one's over, you're finally able to leave. And the second you leave the area, there he is for round 3. God damn it! Queen Roger's introduction is fucking amazing. You come across this brothel and witness a dispute out front of it. As it turns out, this particular customer isn't the biggest fan of femboy trap GFs and makes a scene over it. And the head of the brothel, Queen Roger, delivers a badass line. "Listen, motherfucker, I'm a crossdresser, not some pansy. Putting on panties didn't make my balls disappear. So you best walk out of here now before we bury you here, bitch tits." After this, he swings the bat at the customer's head and walks back in the building like nothing happened. Because of this interaction alone, every playthrough I do of this game, I make sure to put Queen Roger in my party. When you're searching the swamplands, there is one particular hole in the ground that serves as an entrance to a city of fishmen. Here, you're dragged into a courtroom where you meet your fishman lawyer, Harvey Alabaster. Harvey spends the trial doing nothing but telling the judge how much you want to fuck his wife, and since the judge doesn't speak English, you still walk out of there with a not guilty verdict and a new party member in Harv. These next guys aren't recruitable, but they're still pretty funny. At one point, you come across the Salvation Rangers as they do battle against their foe, Blake the Snake. Or at least, they're trying to. But the Pink Ranger is too hungover for this shit and abandons them, leaving you to deal with Blake's serious snake slaps. Let's move on from the funny shit and get into the cool shit. One of my favorite fights occurs when you come across a cult that worships a fast food mascot. When you get to the restaurant that they pray to up the mountain, you fight the mascot, Wally, who, as you wear his HP down, breaks open to reveal that inside of the suit was nothing but a pile of rotting hamburger meat. This fight was just unnerving enough to stick out in my mind, and I adore the concept of it. A good way into the game, you come across a wrestling tournament. There, you can work your way up the ranks until you earn the championship belts of each division. I thought that this was a pretty cool addition to the game, and introduced such menacing fighters like Gary the Hot Soup. Now there's a name to strike fear into the hearts of your opponents. I suppose it's time to wrap all this up. This has been going long enough. At the end of the game, Brad faces off against the final obstacle standing between him and Buddy, Rando's entire army. Brad is ready to get in there and kill all of them, but the rest of his party aren't as keen on that. In fact, they now see that what Brad is doing is incredibly selfish and wish to stop him. This leads to Brad fighting them, killing the active party members that fought alongside you for so long. After this bloodbath, Brad turns to face the army, who wants to give him one last chance to escape with his life. To which another badass quote is stated. "I've been dead for 35 years. Today is the day that I live." An absolute massacre unfolds. Brad tears through Rando's army like they are nothing. By the end of it, he is scarred on most of his body and has multiple arrows sticking out of him, but the combination of rage and adrenaline causes him to not notice. Now, the only one left is Rando. Rando pleads with you to see reason. Buddy's humanity's last shot at a future. But this pleading falls on deaf ears. Brad never gave a shit about that. All he cared about was getting a second chance at being a good person, a second chance to redeem himself, a second chance to forgive himself for Lisa's suicide. As you fight Rando, you notice that he also uses the Armstrong fighting style, which leads to an insane fucking twist. Rando was once Brad's student and saw him as a father figure, which made having to fight him even harder to do. Brad eventually overcomes Rando, and in his bloody, beaten state, tries to bring Buddy home with him. But Buddy refuses. You see, in trying to save Buddy, Brad unintentionally did more harm to her than any wasteland roamer ever could. Buddy grew to resent Brad for his actions, and saw him for the monster that he was. Brad's final action was to ask Buddy to comfort him with a hug before falling unconscious. But he wasn't dead. No, something worse was happening to him. You remember that drug Brad was addicted to? Joy? Well, it has a peculiar side effect. Eventually, it turns you into a deformed, mutated monster. You see many such cases of this throughout the game, and in the end, Brad was doomed to the same fate as those other poor bastards. Lisa the Painful RPG is one of my favorite games of all time. The story was engaging, the humor was right up my alley, and I definitely felt the consequences of every decision I made. Don't get me wrong here, the people who have played this game sing its praises to high heaven. But I'm saying that this game needs to be talked about a lot more than it is. Ideally, everyone should play this game at least once. If you showed even the slightest interest in this game because of what I said, then I fucking implore you to buy this game and play it for yourself. It's only like $10, and I only scratched the surface of what this game has to offer. This game is a great time, and it has certainly earned its place in the Hall of Underrated Games. I'm Mike Osiris, and I'm going back under.